Hello friends, I welcome you all to Nyandip Academy for UPSC and MPSC. In this online session, we are going to analyze the Hindu editorial dated 19th January 2021. Let's begin with the first article. The first article is about the vaccine hesitation that is developed among the people of India as India is going for a vaccination drive, and the article discusses why is it that a vaccine hesitancy has developed. So we'll just have a look at the article. First, we'll start with the vocabulary. The first word that is there in the article is amenable, which is an adjective which means open and responsive to suggestions. The next word is verily, which is again an adverb and it means truly. The third word is amicably, which is a adverb which means characterized by friendliness. The next word is unequivocally, which is an adverb which means in a way that leaves no doubt. So let's begin reading the article. Whatever it takes. The meaning of this title is the government must do whatever it takes so as to remove the vaccine hesitancy that is there amongst the people. Only if all the efficacy data is put before the people, all the adverse effects of the vaccine are addressed, only then the people will come forward to vaccinate themselves against the COVID vaccine, against the COVID. The government must do all within its powers to combat vaccine hesitancy. What is vaccine hesitancy? Vaccine hesitancy means a person is not ready to go to administer himself or herself for the vaccine, for the COVID vaccine. And this is because there are fears in the mind of the people regarding the adverse effect of the vaccines, regarding the medical treatment that a person will have to go for in case the person develops a side effect. That is vaccine hesitancy. Faith in entities is often an act of personal commitment, not amenable to falsification. But trust in a scientific process can be established with confidence building measures and full disclosure of all the relevant data. So here, if a person has to believe in any entity, it will be because of personal commitment. But when a person has to develop in a scientific process such as the development of this vaccine, the administering of this vaccine, then this can be established only after the entire data is opened before the public, if there is a transparency in all the scientific data that is related to this vaccine. Any mass campaign that involves voluntary effort on the part of the public can succeed only when transparency and open communication channels are tools of choice. People will come forward for the vaccination only if they are aware of all the entire history of all this vaccine and its adverse effects. If the poor rate of uptake of the COVID vaccine in most states in the country is any indication, the government has not taken the people of the country along in what is purely a voluntary exercise. So, as you are all aware, a dry run has been conducted in 4 states of the country. The results of this dry run, or we can say the rates where people have administered themselves for taking the vaccine, is very low, and this is somewhere because of the transparency is not there when it comes to putting all the data before the public. But one vested with great power to retard the pace of the pandemic. Now, taking the example of Tamil Nadu, for instance, Tamil Nadu, a state perceived to be largely health literate and relatively well equipped with health infrastructure, achieved only over 16% of its targeted coverage on the launch day. So, the day the vaccine was supposed to be administered in the state of Tamil Nadu, the rate that people came in to take the vaccine was only 16%, which is very less than the targeted coverage. On the second day of the vaccination, the compliance further dropped. The second day was even worse. Fewer people came than on the first day. In some states, vaccination was suspended. A marked favoring of the Covishield vaccine over Covaxin was also noted in multiple states. So we need to see two issues here. First is a vaccine hesitancy is developed because of its adverse effect, because all the data is not available on the public platform. That is the first thing. The second thing is that people are preferring the Covishield vaccine that is developed by Pfizer than the Covid vaccine which is developed by biotech. This is the reason for this is that all the efficacy data, the phase 3 trials, are available before the public when it comes to the Covishield. But even the scientific community is not satisfied with the trials and with the efficacy data related to the Covaxin, and therefore people are not comfortable with the Covid vaccine as compared to the Covishield. But none of this is a surprise. The signs verily were out there for everyone to see for a long time indeed. Studied, measured, measured high levels of vaccine hesitancy among the general population and among healthcare workers, the first in the line of people to receive the fee vaccination. So, vaccine hesitancy, you can see, is not developed only in the general public, but it is also developed amongst the healthcare workers who will be the first in line to receive this vaccination. Now, as all of you are aware, the government has designated the priority sector who is going to first receive the vaccination once it is available for public use. And in the healthcare workers, the doctors, people who are in the age group of 60 plus and above, these are the priority sectors who are going to receive the vaccine once it is made available for public use. So even if the healthcare sectors or the healthcare workers are afraid of going for the vaccination, that is a big concern, that is a big question mark that needs to be addressed. Clearly, vaccine hesitancy was not addressed sufficiently or not taken seriously enough. With the sequence of events that followed the clearance of emergency use authorization in Covaxin, it is emergency use authorization in clinical trial mode, a high handed announcement with little attempt to put out compelling evidence in the public domain or answering multiple queries in press conferences. Vaccine hesitancy merely dug its heels in deeper. So, why is it that a vaccine hesitancy has developed for both the vaccines, and now it is more over for a Covaxin? So, to understand this, first let's understand the meaning of emergency use authorization. Now, emergency use authorization is a mechanism to facilitate the availability and the use of medical countermeasures, including vaccines, during public health emergencies, such as the current COVID pandemic. Now, under the emergency use authorization, the FDA allows unapproved medical products or unapproved uses of approved products in an emergency to diagnose, treat, and prevent serious life threatening disease when certain statutory criteria have been met, including that there are no adequate, approved, and available alternatives. So, that is about emergency use authorization. We also need to know what is clinical trial mode, that is there in the context of the Covaxin. In relation to a new drug or an investigated new drug, in any case, any scientific study of such new drugs or investigational new drug in human subjects to generate data for discovering or verifying its clinical or pharmacological or adverse effects. That is clinical trial mode, which is being used for Covaxin. The inability of the government and the agencies involved to amicably resolve controversies surrounding the clearance for Covaxin even before it was able to produce interim data on efficacy from phase 3 trials has had a direct consequence, as witnessed by poor numbers in its uptake so far. So, why is it that people are hesitant more for the Covaxin? It is because the efficacy of the phase 3 trials are not available, and the government has not put in public domain the controversies that are related to the Covaxin. Even the scientific community is not well satisfied about the ability of this Covaxin to cure the infection or to have its target, and therefore there is a lot of controversy surrounding this Covaxin, which has resulted in a public hesitancy in going for this vaccine. A vaccine unequivocally is public good, but the lack of transparency surrounding the rollout of the COVID vaccines has done little to enhance trust in this experimental principle. This uncommon haste in trying to lunge towards the tape while still some distance from the finish line might have been justified if the state had taken the people along. The state, the government of India needs to take the people along, and this can be possible only if trust is developed in the people, and trust can be developed only if the entire process, right from the development of the vaccine to its trials to its efficacy data, if all this is out in the public domain, the hesitancy rate will definitely reduce. Vaccinating the nation, however, is less a race than a slow and steady process. So, what needs to be followed in this process of vaccination is not the end result, is not how many people are vaccinated, but what needs to be followed is the process of vaccination has to be a slow, a steady, a transparent process concentrating on the health of the people. Building confidence in the process is crucial to achieving the task at hand. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's oft repeated mantra, Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, is very relevant here. So, the health of each and every individual, each and every citizen of the nation is very important. It cannot be compromised just because of hate, just because of haste, just because of hurry. And the health ministry must do whatever it takes to make a success of the vaccination drive. So it is all dependent on the health ministry, on the government of India to make available the efficacy data, the trial 3, all the phase trials before the public so that the hesitancy rate reduces and people come forward to get themselves vaccinated. That is about the first article. Let's move to the second article. The second article is about the situation that is there in the state of in the country of Russia. And you're all aware that Alexei Navalny has been had been poisoned in the month of August, and he is the biggest, or you can say the strongest political opponent to the president of Russia, that is Vladimir Putin. And Vladimir Putin, who has been in power for almost 2 decades, has had no strong rivals, no strong opponent who's as strong as Alexei Navalny. Alexei Navalny has a lot of supporters, and in this context, it is believed that the state of Russia or some people from the state of Russia have poisoned Alexei Navalny, and on emergency basis he was transferred to Germany, and he was hospitalized in Germany. He was operated, or he was operated out of this he was operated and he was out of danger. And it was revealed, it was also it was put in papers that a nerve agent was used for poisoning the opponent Alexei Navalny, and this nerve agent is said to be given by the Russian authorities. So, this is all about poison and prison, and let's read the article and understand the vocabulary. The first word we need to understand is unleashes. Unleashes is a verb which means cause something to be released. The next word is belies, which is a verb which means fail to give a true impression of something. The next word is embezzlement, which is a noun which means misappropriation of funds that are given to a particular person. Embodiment is the next word, which is a noun which means a visible form of an idea. The next word is implicated, which is a verb which means show someone to be involved in a crime. We also need to know who's Alexei Navalny. Alexei Navalny is a Russian opposition figure. He's also an anti-corruption activist, and as I said, he was poisoned in the month of August. Let's read the article. Poison and prison. Navalny is growing as an oppositional figure in Russia as Putin unleashes state power on him. Russian authorities have repeatedly tried to play down the political importance of Alexei Navalny, the opposition politician who was poisoned in Siberia 5 months ago, saying he's unpopular. So, Russian authorities have said that they are not anywhere responsible for the poisoning of this political opponent of Vladimir Putin, and they also believe that he is unpopular, which is on the contrary, he's got a lot of supporters. President Vladimir Putin, while answering questions from reporters in December on the poison attack, said, "Who needs him anyway?" So this statement, "Who needs him in anyway," has a lot of implications, and it also means that Vladimir Putin is going all the way to poison him and to remove him from the power. But the arrest of the 44-year-old Kremlin critic upon his return to Moscow on Sunday, he left the country in a coma from the near fatal chemical attack, only belies such claims. So we need to understand the meaning of this line, we need to understand certain history. It was in the month of August that he was poisoned, and on a flight in Siberia, he fell unconscious, and from there he was flown to Germany where he was hospitalized, and he was operated for, and it was there that the Russian the German hospital authorities revealed that a Novichok a nerve agent was used to poison him, and after that, uh, he was recovered. After recovering, he returned from Germany to Moscow. Russian authorities had warned him that if he returns to Moscow, he will be imprisoned. And upon his return to Moscow, he was actually imprisoned, and he was sentenced to 30. He was sentenced to 30 days of custody. The authorities diverted his plane to a different airport on the outskirts and detained him before he could get past the passport control, where riot police were deployed to stop his supporters from entering the arrival zone of another airport. So, in the sky itself, the airport which was bringing Alexei Navalny back to Moscow, that airplane was diverted to another airport, and at the other airport also his supporters were not allowed to enter into the arrival area. Russian authorities had warned that he could be arrested if he returned from Germany, where he was recovering from the poison attack, as he had been wanted since late December for violations of his sentence from an embezzlement case. Now, all of you are aware that. Alexei Navalny is a popular anti-corruption activist. He was also implicated by the Russian authorities on several instances, saying that he has misappropriated funds, and he has given them to many charity institutions, and for this he has been sentenced to imprisonment. And there are charges against him that he has his sentences of violated his sentence where he was sentenced put to imprisonment. And it is on these charges that the Russian authorities had asked him to stay away from coming to Moscow. But Mr. Navalny, who has accused Mr. Putin of ordering the poison attack, still chose to travel to Russia in an open defiance of Mr. Putin's power and courted arrest. Although Mr. Navalny was aware that if he returns back to Russia from Germany, he will be arrested, he still has returned to Moscow, and he had been arrested on his return. On Monday, a judge remanded him in custody for 30 days. In Mr. Navalny, Mr. Putin has found his strongest political opponent in his 2 decade long rule. So, this is the climax, or we can say this is the central line of this article, and this is why all this poison and prison has been going on, because Mr. Putin has found the biggest and the strongest opponent in Mr. Navalny. And not only this, Mr. Navalny has a lot of supporters to him. Once known for his extreme nationalist and anti immigrant views, today Mr. Navalny has turned himself into the embodiment of anti Kremlin politics in Russia, which remains tightly controlled by Mr. Putin. So, the entire political arena domain is under the control of Mr. Putin. And Mr. Navalny has. Once he was against immigration into Russia, but today he's against the corruption that is taking place there. He's an anti-corruption activist, and he's also aware. He's also exposing the politics that is taking place in Kremlin, and that is why he's targeted by Mr. Vladimir Putin. And it is no secret that Kremlin has tried its best to suppress his political movement. He has been detained several times and criminal cases are launched against him. Only that his supporters should not support him, and he should not become popular opponent of Mr. Vladimir Putin. Several cases have been cited against him, and he's been arrested on several occasions. He was barred from contesting the 2018 presidential elections, and in August he collapsed while on a domestic flight from Siberia. German doctors who treated him later confirmed that he was poisoned with a Novichok nerve agent. So we need to know what is a Novichok nerve agent with which Mr. Alexei Navalny had been poisoned. It is actually a group of nerve agents which are binary chemical weapons. Some are solid, some may be found in the liquid form, but it is believed to be one of the deadliest ever made nerve agents by the Russian scientists. Western media investigations had implicated Russian agents. An allegation of the government has denied. So, who is behind the Novichok nerve agent? It is believed that, and the media has also investigated into this matter. It is the Russian agents who are responsible for poisoning Alexei Navalny because of the popularity that he's getting. Mr. Putin cannot escape questions about his most prominent political opponent being poisoned within Russia. The government of Russia has to answer this question and has to investigate the matter as to how Alexei Navalny had been poisoned and who's responsible for this. His government has the responsibility to investigate what happened in Siberia and bring the perpetrators to justice. That is what any government that believes in the rule of law should be doing. If justice prevails in Russia, then the perpetrators of this injustice that was meted out to Alexei Navalny, they have to be justice has to be done to Alexei Navalny, and they have to be punished. But instead of finding and punishing those who attacked him, Mr. Putin's government, like any dictatorial regime, is going after the victim. It is ironic that Mr. Putin, who recently got the constitution amended so that he could stay in power beyond two consecutive terms, is still perturbed or disturbed by the presence of a leader who he says nobody wants. So we need to understand, this is very important, that Vladimir Putin, who's already in power for the last 2 decades, is still interested in reigning the country for another term. And for this, he has also amended the constitution of the country so that he can stay in power beyond two consecutive terms. If the long years of attempts to suppress Mr. Navalny's political activism have achieved anything, it is that he is now a stronger opposition figure with international standing. So, as Vladimir Putin has been trying to um, remove his political opponent by wrong measures, this has only resulted in the opposite. That not only has Alexei Navalny emerged as a more stronger opponent, but he also has the international support with him. He is a figure now, because of his German hospitalization. He's a figure who has an international standing, and he's also, because of his anti-corruption activist, he also has a strong supporter base within the state of Russia and also outside Russia. So that is all about the second article. Thank you. See you in the next session with a new analysis of the Hindu, dated 20th January 2021. Thank you.